it's Jennifer from Fiber Flux. Welcome to the 2018 Fiber Flux Temperature Shawl Crochet Along. This is a year-long project that we're going to work on as a group. And if you're not familiar with the concept of a temperature shawl, this is a project where you add to it a little bit at a time and you assign colors based on the temperature outside. So I've assigned some colors going from less than 0 degrees all the way up to 100 degrees plus. So this is a project, a temperature project is something I've always wanted to try. I've never gotten around to it. And I wanted to change things up a little bit. So I see a lot of temperature blanket projects and some temperature scarves, but I really wanted to make a shawl, partly because I really enjoy making shawls and they're very versatile. They also make wonderful gifts. So if you want to give someone a temperature shawl, a completed one at the end of the year, it would make a really unique and wonderful gift for someone as well. So the other thing that's going to be a little bit different about our project Crochet Along is that instead of making 1 row per day, we're going to do 1 row per week. So that's really going to be a very low stress, kind of low key year-long project. Even if you get weeks and weeks behind, or even like a month or 2 behind, you can sit down and work up a few rows of this shawl and catch up if need be. Likewise, if you want to look at the forecast ahead of time, if you want to work a week ahead, that's fine too. So because we're working a 1 row equals 1 week of this project, we're going to be using the average temperature for the week. So other projects I've seen, temperature projects, they'll do 1 row per day. So I really wanted to kind of scale back on the amount of daily commitment of this project, and we're just going to do 1 row per week. So at the end of the year, you'll have a shawl that's 52 rows long. So one of these is about 1 inch, give or take. So you'll have a shawl that's 52 inches long, which is a nice size. Now, if we were to do a row per day, the shawl would be very, very, very long, and it would probably, I'm sure it would definitely touch the ground on both sides. So we're just going to do 1 row per week. That being said, I'm going to give the multiples of this stitch. Now you may recognize this stitch. This is a kind of a fan or double V I use quite a bit. It's a favorite stitch of mine, which is why I also wanted to use this stitch for this project. But if you want to shorten this and make it into a scarf, if you really prefer a scarf, or you wanted to make it very wide and make a blanket, I'll be providing the multiples for this stitch later on in the video. So again, 1 row equals 1 week out of the year, and we're going to be working through the whole year. And I already have started mine, which we'll do later on in this video. This is row 1 that represents week 1, the bottom of the shawl here. And then this darker purple is week 2. So as you can see, it's pretty cold here where I live. And, you know, we have our first 2 weeks of the year. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I'm going to put this project and the links to it in the Ravelry Fiber Flux Crochet Along group, where I normally put all the other crochet alongs that we do. So you'll be able to access these tutorials, and of course there'll be the video tutorial in the post as well. I'm going to get into the supplies needed, and then later we're going to do the tutorial for both rows 1 and row 2. Row 2 is the row you'll do for the rest of the project, and I'm also going to show you how to switch colors as well. So let's get started on our tutorial, and if you have any questions or need help with your project, you can ask in the Ravelry group, and there's tons of really experienced crocheters that will jump in and help, as well as myself, or you can just send me a message as well. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a ruler or tape measure, a 6mm J crochet hook, a tapestry needle, and your yarn. Now I made a little chart here just to help me and kind of serve as a reference point as I create my project throughout the year. We're going to be using Red Heart Super Saver, and I chose this yarn for a variety of reasons. The first reason is that it's easy to find, and you can pretty much find this at any craft store and in yarn aisles of the larger department stores. And if you can't find it though in your area, you can go to redheart.com and get it there. It comes in tons of colors and it has no dye lots. So if you're kind of like working through your stash like I am here, and you have perhaps like a little bit of yellow and you need more later on in the year, it doesn't have dye lots. So you could just go get another skein of this and just keep on going. And it's machine washable. So if you give this as a special gift at the end of the year, for example, the person you give it to will be able to wash it in the machine. So I did make this chart like I mentioned before, and I am going to be doing kind of like a classic temperature rainbow scheme here. So as it gets hotter, the colors get warmer, and as it gets cooler, the color gets cooler as well. So starting from the top, when it's less than 0 degrees to 10 degrees, I'm going to be using white. When it's 11 degrees to 20 degrees, I'm going to use the orchid colorway. And this, again, this is all Red Heart Super Saver. When it's 21 degrees to 30 degrees, I'm going to use this lavender yarn. When it's 31 degrees to 40 degrees, I'm going to use blue. Now, just as a side note, this shade of blue is actually called Delft blue. But you can, the blue that's called blue from Red Heart Super Saver is actually more of like a classic blue, but either shade is fine. When it's 41 to 50 degrees, I'm going to use this aqua color. It's actually called turquoise. When it's 51 to 60 degrees, I'm going to use spring green. When it's 61 to 70 degrees, I'm going to use bright yellow. 71 to 80 degrees, perfect pink. It's like this lighter pink here. 81 degrees to 90 degrees, shocking pink. And then 91 to 100 degrees plus, I'm going to use cherry red. Now, just a couple of side notes I wanted to mention. You don't have to use this exact color scheme. You can do different colors if you like. You could do one color family, for example. If you have some favorites, you know, feel free to do that and change it up a bit. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. Now, some of you live in areas that don't have quite this large of a range of temperatures. I happen to live in a place where it gets cold and very hot. I get all of the temperatures. So if you need to adjust this for the area that you live, definitely do that. It'll make more sense when you make the shawl, because if it never gets any colder than 40 degrees, for example, where you live, you know, you'll never use any of these colors. Also, mine is in degrees Fahrenheit. So if you use Celsius more frequently where you live, you know, you might need to adjust these numbers as well. So all that being said, I also wanted to mention too that, again, I mentioned this earlier in the video, but we're going to be doing weekly averages, because if we were to do a row of the stitch I'm going to show you for every single day, it would be very, 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 very long, way too long for a shawl. So we're going to do the weekly average, and that keeps it simple too. So it's not like you're having to hurry up and get a row in every single day. It's kind of like a low stress project, like I mentioned before. So again, these are going to be your weekly averages. So you can either look ahead at the forecast if you know you won't be able to work ahead, or you can look and see what the weather already was. It's really like one of those low stress projects that doesn't require a huge commitment, even though it's a year-long project. So let's get started. Now, it's the second week of January, so I didn't want to share this the first week of January because I want to show you rows 1 and 2, also known as weeks 1 and 2, as represented in our shawl. So we're going to do rows 1 and 2 of the pattern today that will represent week 1 of January and week 2 of January. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to do our starting chain, and then we're going to do row 1, and then we're going to do row 2. Now each row, once again, will represent a week out of the year, and I went ahead and grabbed the colors that I'll need. So last week was pretty chilly week, so I grabbed the orchid yarn here, this lighter purple. And then this week that we're in, the average temperature that has happened and that they're forecasting, because we're kind of in the middle of the week, it's going to be more in this lavender range. So I grabbed these two colors. Now row 2 that I'll be showing you in just a bit is the row that you'll be repeating for the whole entire shawl. You'll just be changing the colors up. So I'm going to show you how to get started. We're going to learn how to switch colors and work the stitch pattern. Now, if you want to keep this handy as you work throughout the year, that's a great idea. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the stitch pattern that we'll be doing is very, very easy. If you are a frequent visitor to the Fiber Flux YouTube channel, you'll notice that I use this stitch quite a bit. It's a favorite stitch of mine. So let's get started. Again, we're going to start with this orchid first. So our starting chain is going to be 55 chains. So what we're going to do is, let me just scoot this yarn out of the way. Okay, we're going to begin by putting a slip knot on our hook, and then we're going to work 55 chains. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Next, we're going to chain 55. Now, if you want your shawl to be a different width, or if you want to make it into a scarf and make it very narrow, you can do that as well. The multiple for the stitch that we'll be using is a multiple of 4 plus 3. If you're not familiar with that concept, just make groups of 4 chains, 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, until you get the width that you need, and then add 3 more chains to the end of that, okay? So let's chain 55. To make a chain, wrap yarn around hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, and 55, okay? So here is our starting chain, and I wanted to mention to not make it too tight because it will draw in the bottom of your shawl quite a bit. If you're having trouble with your chain and it's looking a little too tight or feeling too tight, it doesn't have that elasticity, switch to a larger hook for the chain only, and then you can switch back to the J hook for the remainder of your project. Okay, so for row 1, that represents week 1 of the year, we're going to, again, stick with this orchid color for week 1, and we're going to work in the 5th chain from the hook. So this loop here on your hook does not count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this chain here, we're going to make our first double V. Now again, if you have done quite a bit of Fiber Flux projects, you'll know that I just love this double V stitch. So this is a favorite stitch of mine. Okay, so let's make our first one. In the 5th chain from the hook, we're going to work 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. Okay, so to make a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the 5th chain from the hook, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops on your hook. Okay, we're going to make another double crochet in that same chain. Now chain 1, and then in the same chain, work 2 more double crochet. 1 and 2. Okay, just like that. Now we're going to skip 3 chains. 1, 2, 3, and in the chain after that, make another one of your fans. So 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 1, and then 2 more double crochet. 1 and 2, just like that. Skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and in the chain after that, work another fan. 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 1 and 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. All right, I'm going to grab a little bit more yarn here. And like I mentioned before, this is a wonderful project to use stuff up from your stash. Okay, skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3. In the chain after that, work your next fan. 2 double crochet, 1, 2, chain 1, and 2 double crochet, 1, 2. If you notice, we're doing the same thing all the way across. Skip 3 chains in the chain after that, add another fan, 2 double crochet, chain 1, and 2 more double crochet, 1 and 2. Skip 3 chains in the chain after that, add another fan, 2 double crochet, 1, 2, chain 1, 2 more double crochet, 1 and 2. Grab a little bit more yarn if you need to. All right, moving right along. Skip 3 chains in the chain after that, work your next fan, 2 double crochet, 1, 2, chain 1, 2 double crochet. Skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, in the next chain, 2 double crochet, chain, whoops, drop that chain, chain 1, and 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. We have some really pretty fans happening along our row here. Skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, in the chain after that, work your next fan, 1 and 2, and chain 1, and 2 more double crochet, 1 and 2. Skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and work your next fan, 2 double crochet, 1, 2, chain 1, and work 2 more double crochet. Just like that. All right, we're almost towards the end here. Skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3. The chain after that, work your next fan, 1, 2, chain 1, and 2 double crochet. Skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and in the chain after that, work your next fan. The next row that we do will not be any counting of chains. So the next row is much easier. Okay, and then 2 double crochet after that. Skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and in the chain after that, work your next fan, 2 double crochet, chain 1, and 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. Okay, now to finish row 1, you're going to have 2 chains left. Skip that chain that you come to next, and in the very last chain, work a double crochet in that very last chain. Okay, just like that. So row 1 is complete, and it looks very pretty. We're going to move on to row 2. Now, like I mentioned before, the week 2 of the year is, I'm going to work mine in lavender. Obviously, you'll adjust yours as needed, color-wise. So we're going to switch colors. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, if it was the same color, you would just do your turning chain, which is going to be a chain 3, and turn your work and then keep going, okay? So if you don't need to switch colors, just do that. But let me just back up a little bit. We are definitely going to switch colors. And so I'm going to grab my scissors and just cut a little bit. We're going to break the yarn and we're going to fasten off, okay? Then what we're going to do is grab our next color. Let's get the yarn from this end because this is the center pool. It's a little bit easier. Okay, so what we're going to do is grab our row here that we've done. Now that last stitch that you worked, insert your hook into that last stitch and bring the new yarn through. Now again, if you want to stick with the same color based on the temperature of where you live, you can skip this whole part. But you'll eventually need to switch colors. Okay, and then just tie the new yarn on, just like that. And now we're ready to proceed. So reinsert your hook back into that same stitch that you just tied the yarn onto, bring up a loop, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then turn your work. All right, now for row 2, we're going to deal with all these tails later too, by the way. For row 2, locate the center of each V. Remember we did that chain 1? That created a little bit of an opening. We're going to be working our next row into each one of these spaces. So we're going to work our next fan into the chain 1 space, okay? So wrap yarn around hook, work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, right into the center of that fan from the previous row. I'm just going to grab some yarn here. Okay. Now we're going to chain 1, same thing we did before. There we go. Now my yarn's situated. And then 2 more double crochet into that fan as well. So we're doing the same thing, but we're just working instead into the chain 1 space rather than down here at the chain, okay? Now see how those fans are going to be stacked on top of one another? Okay, hop on over to the next fan and do the same thing. 2 double crochet, 1, 2, chain 1, and 2 double crochet. Now my rows are going to be roughly about 1 inch tall. Now depending on the yarn you're using, the hook you're using, and your own personal tension, your height might vary a little bit, but as long as it's about 1 inch, give or take, it's going to be a very nice shawl in length, okay? Okay, so move on to the next fan and work your next set of stitches. So 2 double crochet, chain 1, and 2 double crochet into that fan. Okay, hop over to the next chain 1 space, work your next fan, 2 double crochet, chain 1, and 2 double crochet. Hop over to the next fan and work 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. So we're just doing this all the way across, just like that. And you can see, even now with just 2 rows, it looks very pretty already. Okay, moving right along to the next chain 1 space of our row, 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, next chain 1 space, work your next fan, 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, next chain 1 space, work your next fan. Let's try that again. Work your next fan. So 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, next fan, 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. We are getting towards the end of the row. We have a nice wide pretty shawl to wear. Okay, last couple of fans here. Work in your next space your fan, 2 double crochet, chain 1, and 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. Next fan, 2 double crochet, chain 1, and 2 double crochet. All right, we're getting close to the end here. Just the last couple of fans, 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. Okay, last fan of the row. You're just going to do the same thing. Work 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. And then to finish off the row, remember that turning chain we did? It created a space in the side of this fan. So right into that turning chain space. Now the fan pushes open, so it might push that chain off to the side. You might have to kind of like turn and look for it a little bit. But right into that space, that hole created by that turning chain, work a double crochet right into the turning chain space. Okay? So row 2 and week 2 is finished on our temperature shawl. It already looks very, very pretty. I love these colors. So as we work through each week, I'm going to give some seasonal updates. So as spring approaches and we're getting into spring more, we'll do an update and I'll just show you kind of like the progress of how it's going. And also, please share your projects as well in the process of your, in the progress rather of your shawls as well. I'm going to be sharing this in the Ravelry group, the Fiber Flux Crochet Along Ravelry group, so everybody can kind of share and see. And it'll be really interesting to see. There's lots of you live in many different parts of the world, so it'll be really interesting to see how all of our temperature shawls vary and really all the color palettes that we choose as well. So definitely share those, and I'll be sharing frequently my progress rather on social media as well. So enjoy your shawl. And again, this is a week by week project, not a day by day project. So even if you get a little bit behind and even like a month behind, you only have to put like 4 rows in or etc., for example. So enjoy, and I'll be giving some updates on the temperature shawl as 2018 moves ahead. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button for all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.